Hello and welcome to Zagreb, the capital of Croatia, for this new edition of the interview on France 24. On June 30th, Croatia secured EU membership. This former Yugoslav nation of 4.4 million should become, by July 2013, the 28th member of the European Union. Well, my guest today is the President of the Republic of Croatia, Ivo Josipovic. Mr. Josipovic, thank you for having us here at your office in the centre of Zagreb. Now, during the campaign in 2010, you vowed to secure EU membership. Now that it's happened, you must be a happy man.
I'm a happy man, and we have to thank to everyone who participated, especially the government and the other officials who participated in the efforts. Opposition as well, because opposition was also part of our EU efforts. Also, I have to thank our European friends for all support we had in all this period. But in spite, I'm very happy about our EU membership. I'm aware that we have to continue with our reforms because, in my view, Croatia should be a typical European country with a good economy in due time. That means about 2020. I expect that Croatia will be a typical European country.
And that hasn't quite happened yet?
Yeah, we have to perform different reforms further. We fulfilled all EU requirements, but we need much more. I hope that our GDP will be like a percentage in Europe, that our institution will function as efficient as in all other European countries, and of course our judiciary is going to be better and better.
And despite the good news, Euroscepticism has been rising in your country. That's according to several polls. Why is that? Does that worry you?
Specifically, after closing negotiations, our Euroscepticism is falling. So we started our negotiation process with support that was very high for EU. Then it was one period in which our support of our citizens declined. It was especially after a very long period of negotiations for us. We expected that it will be quicker. Our citizens expected that it will be quicker. And so economical crisis was there, some Hague issues also was worrying here our citizens, and the results was weakening the support. But now the support is very good. It's now rising, and it's about nearly 60%. And I stress that our task is to have at least number 6 as first figure. I would like to have 7 at least, because that will be definite support to the legitimacy of our European efforts and further reforms that we need.
Are you worried that a majority of Croatians could reject EU membership in the forthcoming referendum?
No, I think if everything goes as planned, that our support will be more than 60%, even 70%. That's my estimation. But the precondition for this is to split elections. We are going to have elections relatively soon from campaign for referendum. And I expect all our parties, because all of them, in spite of 1 or 2 minor parties, they were preaching about EU. Now they have to confirm their European approach. They have to convince their voters to vote for EU.
Ivo Josipovic, when you were elected, you vowed to crack down on corruption. In early July, you decided to fire Mladen Kruljac, who was until recently the commander of Croatia's ground troops. He was the 4th most important person in the Croatian army. Why did you decide to fire him?
I fired him because he's under suspicion for some crimes. And that's normal. He's not, unfortunately, in pre-trial detention, but the rule of law is applied to everyone in the same manner.
And what else can you tell you about the case at this stage?
No, I will not discuss the case. That's not my job. It's the job of a prosecutor and police. And for me, anyone who is under suspicion cannot be on that high position, such high position.
I'd like to talk about the case of Ivo Sanader, the former Croatian Prime Minister who is awaiting trial on charges of abuse of office and corruption. Now that Austria, the country where he was arrested, has agreed to extradite him to Croatia, what do you think should happen?
What I always stressed, rule of law means that no one from executive will interfere in the process, but also independence and fair trial is something that's expected for everyone, including former Prime Minister Mr. Sanader. So I always hesitate to speak about the case. I just somehow claim for independence of the court. I'm asking any politician, every politician to not to interfere, and I also hope and I'm convinced that the fair trial will be happening towards Mr. Sanader.
Mr. Sanader claims that he's the victim of a media watch hunt and of former party colleagues seeking revenge. Don't you fear that his trial here will fuel another political crisis and that other heads might roll?
Because there is also other value. It's freedom of press, but of course not to interfere with court proceedings.
The IMF has strongly advised your country to reform its economic policies. Your debt has been rising, growth has been sluggish in recent years, and salaries in Croatia are, of course, much lower than in the rest of the European Union. Don't you fear an economic shock when you will enter the EU?
Definitely we have economical crisis here. It is part of global crisis, but also there are some specific reasons for this. The government envisaged a comprehensive plan for our reforms, economic reforms, but up to now the results are not what we really want it to be. There are some figures now giving some optimism, but definitely we have to make further reforms. They are not only connected to economical issues, enterprises, investments, taxing and everything, but also we have to make our state much more efficient. That means judiciary should be quicker, more independent. Our organization of local community must be more efficient. We have to cut the number of local entities. And so we have to perform a general big reform of our state.
Let me ask you a very simple question. The European Union is going through its deepest political and economic crisis. Why is joining the EU still an attractive option for Croatia?
Definitely we are very interesting to jump into Europe because for us it's opportunity. It depends on ourselves whether we are going to use benefits from our EU membership or will we do some wrong jobs and to be deeper in economic crisis. What's very important, what's good for us, our tourism is much better than last year. We have some good messages from the markets, but also we have still structural problems of our economy. I'm pretty convinced that parts of our economy can fight on the European market and be successful.
Former Croatian General Ante Gotovina was convicted of atrocities by the Hague Tribunal in April. He will spend 24 years in jail. I know this is a polarizing issue in your country because many Croatians still regard him as a hero. Do you regard him as a hero?
He was a very distinguished fighter, definitely. What I have to stress that in spite do we like the verdict or not, Croatia is part of international judicial system. Croatia must obey to the verdicts of the ICTY, and we are going to see what will be the final verdict because it's now in appeal process. Part of my policy is reconciliation. That means also ability and capability of the states and nations to reconsider history and to recognize what was good and what was bad in their policies during past years. Definitely all nations in the world, not only here in this part of the region, tend to see the history in their own eyes. And that's normal somehow, but obviously we have to find common language and to understand each other. In spite the fight, the part of history will be told from different nations in different way.
Mr. President, you have said that you want Croatia to serve as a model for its neighbours in the region. I'm thinking particularly of Bosnia-Herzegovina and Serbia. But are you confident that the EU is serious about enlargement in the region? Aren't you afraid that the doors might close once you're in the club?
Definitely Croatian interest and Croatian policy is to support all countries in the region to become EU members. We are aware of the fact that they need reform, that they need time for this, but we are also going to try to convince all people, all governments in the EU that EU is really covering also whole Southeastern Europe. It's called Southeastern Europe. And I always quote German President Wolf. He said, I would like to travel from Berlin to Athens without the passport. And I think it's very important because Europe without Southeastern Europe is not complete.
Ivo Josipovic, President of the Republic of Croatia, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching this edition of the interview from Zagreb, capital of Croatia. From all of us here, goodbye.